Well, this is different. I'm not in my usual car, and I never will be again. The death of Stevie happened so fast. I really haven't even had time to process it. It was literally yesterday evening, I think, that I decided that I was just gonna give her over to the scrapyard because I can't keep babysitting her in this city. I don't know one in this city. I just had to keep sitting with her. She kept dying in the street. I had to have her towed. I can't move her. She doesn't run at all anymore. The mechanic couldn't get her to start. So at this point, this is all I can do. I don't have time to put her somewhere and sell her on Craigslist or wait for a buyer or anything, because I literally have nowhere to put her and I can't wait around with the van that doesn't work. It's a sad ending. Kind of wish she would have gotten to spread her magic onto someone else. Actually, maybe I don't. From last. Bye, Stevie. See you never, girl. This is a nightmare. Today begins my first day, I guess, being like an actual homeless person who has no home, not even a real vehicle, just a rented one, with all my stuff in it. Feels like I got evicted. I did. I can't even move. Like, I can't get out of bed. Where's Stevie? Oh my god. Ooh. I'm just gonna get right into it. First of all, I would like to apologize for leaving my last video on a semi cliffhanger. It was not intentional. I was just trying to figure out what to do with my van, what to do with my stuff, what to do with myself, plus film, plus edit, and post, all within that same week. It was a lot going on. But I am now more gathered, and I will lay out exactly what you want to hear. First, what happened to Stevie? Well, she didn't run. She couldn't move from the second mechanic that I had her dropped off at because they couldn't get her to start. I could not physically do anything with her. I couldn't move her myself, and I had nowhere to put her. I also didn't have anywhere to stay. So I began calling scrapyards just to see what Stevie was worth, what I could get for her if I did junk her. All the quotes that I got were around $200, and that's what I ended up letting her go for. I know, it's a sad ending, but I literally could not do anything else. I couldn't wait for a buyer on Craigslist. I didn't even have anywhere to put her. I didn't even have a place to put myself. It was beginning to cost a lot of money to babysit a dead van. In the end, I was just grateful that they did take her off my hands because it was such a stressful situation and I had no one around that I knew. So that's what happened to Stevie. She rests in a junkyard. R.I.P. girl. Second, what was wrong? What the heck happened? Well, first, it definitely wasn't my starter because I had just had that replaced a month ago when I was with Mateo in Northern California. It's been a long ride. The first mechanic in Portland said it was the head gasket. That's the one that said that it's overheating and when it dies to put water in the coolant tank and it should be fine and drivable. When I drove away and it died 4 minutes later, I called the same mechanic back and I was like, yo, my van is dead again. So when I had the van towed back, he said he wanted to check the alternator. Well, it wasn't the alternator, it wasn't the battery, it wasn't the fuel pump. He said that it might be the distributor coil and they would be $850 to fix and that maybe it would solve it. So I said no. I didn't want to take the risk. I did not want to put any more money into Stevie. And I mean, to be fair, I did watch him test drive my van around. He drove around the shop 3 times in a row and it was running. So he finally just shrugged and was like, well, here you go. So I took my van back and I drove Stevie to a parking lot where she died for the last time. And then that night at Goodwill, that's when I had her towed by the second mechanic. It was an overnight drop-off recommended by AAA, as was the first. But in the morning, the second mechanic called me and told me that they usually don't work on vehicles that are older than 1996, which I've never heard in my life. So I was like, okay. And they said that they would try to take a look at it. So I asked if they had a timeline of when they would be able to look at my van. And they were like, well, we're booked out for 2 weeks. And I said, okay, well, will it be today at all? And he literally just replied, maybe. They were extremely unhelpful, and honestly, they seemed annoyed that I even bothered to give them my business. Like, hello, you are an auto repair shop, and my auto needs repairing. Anyway, they never got my van to start, and I'm pretty sure they never even tried. When I went to get my stuff out of the van, it was still parked in the parking lot in the exact spot that the tow truck driver had dropped it off at. Now, I will say I am grateful that they let me keep her there while I frantically called junkyards the next day. But they didn't charge me for a diagnostic or anything in the morning, which makes me think that that's because they didn't do one. They don't work on older vehicles, my van did not move, and they didn't charge me for anything because they didn't do anything. That's my theory. So I got no info from that mechanic whatsoever. In conclusion, I'm not exactly sure what happened. I don't know. I do know that Stevie had been having the problem of dying after I started her since I got her. Yes, the whole time. It just progressively got worse and worse. And I took her to a mechanic a million times when I was in Arizona, but nobody was ever able to figure out the problem. It was not the fuel pump, it was not the starter, it was not the alternator, it was not the battery. I'll never know, I guess. I will say I did know that all my gaskets were leaking, but as to why she just died, I don't know. All I knew is that it was not worth it to keep her anymore. Financially, for sure, but also safety-wise. I was ending up in some sketchy situations and it just wasn't safe. Third, where's all my stuff? The day I was frantically calling junkyards trying to get Stevie off my hands, I was also frantically trying to find a new vehicle. I couldn't fly home because I had nowhere to put all my stuff. Plus I had things like lithium batteries that I just couldn't fly home with. So my original plan was to rent a U-Haul cargo van, put all my stuff in it, and then drive slowly across the country and just live in that for a while, which I thought was an excellent plan. However, U-Haul does not allow the cargo vans for cross-country travel. At least not from Portland, because I checked every single shop. They only allow the box trucks, and I was not gonna rent a box truck. Number one, the quote was almost $3,000 for a trip from Oregon to Texas. And that was for the smallest box truck. Number two, they allowed for 7 days of travel time. I would have had to just blaze across America, and I was not trying to do that. And number three, a box truck would have just been absolutely overkill for the amount of stuff that I had. I just didn't have that much stuff. No need for a vehicle that big. Paying for gas alone in that thing would just have not been worth it whatsoever. So the U-Haul plan was scrapped. Next, I started looking at rental cars. I considered a minivan since I might buy a minivan next. The problem with a rental minivan is that it still has all the seats in, so there's not a lot of cargo space. I ended up getting a good deal on a giant SUV, so I went ahead and rented this Ford Explorer, and I've had her ever since. I checked the dimensions, and this Ford Explorer is actually bigger than Stevie. It definitely feels bigger when I'm driving it, but somehow my stuff still filled it up all the way to the top. I guess because the seats are in, I don't know. But there was definitely no room for me to sleep in it. I also didn't have window covers or any of my stuff set up the way I needed to live in it. So that plan was scrapped too. So thankfully, while this has held all of my stuff really nicely, I've had to do hotels, which has sucked. Financially especially. But what can you do? When Stevie was in the shop, I had just a few hours to figure out what to do with the van, figure out what to do with my stuff, arrange a tow pickup, pick up my rental car from the airport, go back to Stevie, take all my stuff out of the van and put it in the SUV all by myself, and then meet the tow truck driver to give Stevie away. I had a few hours to do all of that. It was a lot of work, and honestly, I am just glad that I was able to figure it out so quickly. And fourth, what's next? I have been driving like mad to get home across the country all the way back to Texas because I'm paying daily for this rental and nightly for hotels. So unfortunately, I cannot afford to just meander across the country. My plan is basically just to stay with my family and shop for a new vehicle. This time, one that's newer and more reliable. So I really want to be able to take my time and find something good. Whenever I bought Stevie, it was right after I had totaled my old car Chevy Vetter that I lived in, and so I had to get something immediately. This time I am not doing that. That's why it's important for me to just have somewhere to be settled so I can look. I want to say that I really, really appreciate all the people who wanted to help me in some way. Creating a GoFundMe is not really in the spirit of how I do things. I hate asking people for stuff. I chose to live this way, so it's my responsibility to deal with the consequences that come with living like this. So I will be okay, I promise, but thank you so much. I am so grateful to even have subscribers that want to help me. As far as buying a new vehicle, don't worry, I will handle that. Just leaving a supportive comment and watching my videos means the world to me. I mean, maybe don't skip the ads, you know. I will try to keep you guys updated as much as I can. For now, please stay safe. If your vehicle needs maintenance, go get that. Do not end up like me. That's all I have for you. It's really hot. I'm dying. I'm sweating in here. I love you. Thank you. And I will see you in the next one.